Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really taking apart something you hear all the time, that command to just think positive.
Right. It sounds good, doesn't it? Very comforting.
Totally. Great for, those motivational posters. But our sources today argue pretty strongly that this simple idea, well, it might actually be the biggest, most unhelpful lie we tell ourselves.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice package, that slogan. But the thing is, our nervous system, it's actually way smarter than we often think.
How so?
Well, it tends to actively reject these kinds of wishful statements, especially if they clash with our core experiences, our, internal data.
Okay, so it senses the lie.
Basically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission in this deep dive is to explore why rationality seems to beat blind optimism, forced positivity, and how we can actually reprogram our brains.
Not with slogans, though.
Exactly. Not with slogans, but with hard, verifiable facts. Data.
Okay, I like that. Let's dig into where this whole idea comes from. It really starts with a fascinating figure, Maxwell Maltz.
Yes. Psycho-Cybernetics.
That's the one. He was a plastic surgeon back in the mid-20th century, and he sort of stumbled into becoming the accidental father of self-image psychology.
Yeah, he wasn't setting out to study the mind initially, was he? He was fixing faces.
Right. But he noticed something really strange. He saw patients, people whose physical issues were corrected. They had new faces, maybe reconstructed limbs.
Well, the external problem was solved.
Exactly. But they were still just consumed by this deep despair. They'd been told, hey, be happy now, the problem's fixed.
Right.
But they were still miserable.
And that's when Maltz had his insight. He realized that trying to just think positive without changing your underlying self-perception, it was, completely useless.
He had that great analogy for it, like painting over rust.
Perfect analogy. The surface looks okay for a minute, maybe.
Sure, temporarily.
But that corrosion underneath it just keeps spreading because the fundamental negative self-image is still there, completely untouched. Maltz saw that the brain isn't really fooled by catchy phrases.
It obeys data.
It obeys data. And that leads us right into his core concept. Maltz started thinking of the mind not as some, abstract philosophical thing, but as a practical automatic guidance system.
A servo-mechanism.
Exactly, like a high-tech autopilot in a plane, or even a missile guidance system. It doesn't sit there and judge the coordinates you punch in.
It just executes the instruction.
It just works tirelessly to hit whatever target it's given. No questions asked.
Okay, so the brain's fundamentally obedient then.
Yeah.
Not critical of the input itself.
That's the crucial part, which means if you feed that powerful mechanism flawed input, let's say a core belief like, I'm just unlucky, or maybe I'm inherently unworthy.
It doesn't argue back.
Nope. It just faithfully starts chasing that negative goal. The subconscious mind, it's built for efficiency. If you give it a negative map of reality,
It'll make reality fit the map.
it will filter everything, absolutely everything, to match that map. So, dropping your coffee or hitting a small snag at work isn't just a random event.
It becomes proof.
It becomes immediate proof of your, quote, cursed existence, or whatever the negative belief is. The mechanism itself is working perfectly fine. It's the input that's fundamentally flawed.
Wow. Okay, so the big takeaway here is you can't just wish yourself into success or happiness.
You really can't. Rationality, which basically means correcting that flawed input with accurate data, that's the only thing that seems to genuinely rewire the self-image.
That really clicks.
Mhm.
I mean, if I try to stand there and chant, I am a millionaire, while I'm, staring at an empty bank account,
Yeah.
my nervous system knows, right?
Okay.
He feels that massive gap between the statement and the reality. The internal alarm bells just go off louder.
Precisely. The system detects the lie. It feels the fundamental mismatch.
Okay, let's ground this in some real examples. The sources talk about the power of this factual recalibration over just forcing affirmations. There's a case Maltz worked on, a salesman.
Ah, the salesman, yes.
This guy believed, deep down, that people hate being sold to. So every single call he made, it felt like combat, like he was gearing up for a fight.
And Maltz saw the real issue wasn't the guy's sales technique, right? It was his internal coordinates, his core belief.
Exactly. And Maltz didn't just pat him on the back and say, come on, just believe in yourself.
Which would have been totally useless based on this model.
Right. Instead, Maltz did something different. He showed him actual hard research data, surveys.
What did the data show?
It showed that most buyers actually want expert help. They're actively looking for guidance and reliable information before they make a purchase. They weren't adversaries.
Ah, so the core belief was just wrong. Factually incorrect.
Totally wrong. And what happened when the salesman saw that data?
Well, the sources say his fear just dissolved because the data changed his perspective. His whole body language shifted, the tension went, his tone got better.
And the results?
His sales results tripled. But the key is he hadn't suddenly gotten positive. He'd simply gotten accurate. Correcting the flawed data literally corrected his entire professional outcome.
That's powerful. And you see this pattern, this rational self-correction everywhere at high performance, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Think about Michael Jordan. You know, the story of him being cut from his high school basketball team.
Yeah, legendary story.
He didn't go home, look in the mirror, and start affirming, I am the greatest basketball player ever. He couldn't. He just got cut.
He had to face the data.
He faced the brutal data. At that moment, he just wasn't good enough yet.
And that really sober, rational assessment, that's what lit the fire under him, right? It fueled his incredible discipline.
Exactly. He used the failure purely as information, not as like a condemnation of his entire being. Every practice, every missed shot, it just became more data points in his internal feedback loop. That's genuine resilience.
It wasn't about denying the setback, it was about analyzing it.
And that ability, that willingness to face the absolute worst reality and still function, still find a way forward, that connects directly to someone like Viktor Frankl.
Surviving Auschwitz.
Yes. His survival strategy wasn't based on some kind of blind, cheerful optimism that, oh, everything will magically be fine. That wouldn't have worked.
No, probably not.
Instead, it was what he called rational hope. Finding meaning, finding purpose in the act of enduring the specific, horrific, painful present moment, knowing he could still control his inner response, even if nothing else.
So finding meaning in the truth of the situation, however harsh.
Exactly. Emotion, like blind optimism, it bends and breaks easily under pressure. But evidence, data, and a sense of meaning, those things tend to endure.
Let's shift gears slightly and talk about the hard science here. What's actually going on inside our brains when we hold on to these really ingrained false beliefs, like I always fail or I'm not good enough?
Well, from a neuroscience perspective, those false beliefs are essentially perceived by the brain as ongoing psychological threats.
Threats, even if nothing bad is happening right now.
Yes, because the belief itself primes the system for danger. They trigger stress chemistry, cortisol, adrenaline, and they keep the amygdala, which is kind of the brain's emotional alarm sensor.
The fear center.
Right, the fear center. It keeps it on constant high alert. It's like having a smoke detector that's always blaring, even when there's no fire.
That sounds exhausting.
It is exhausting. You end up constantly scanning your environment, basically looking for confirmation of the threat, ready for the next failure, which just reinforces the belief.
So the lie itself becomes the chronic stressor, regardless of external events.
Absolutely. But here's the flip side.
Yeah.
What happens when we introduce verifiable truth? Facts that contradict the lie.
What happens then?
Well, when you bring in concrete, factual evidence, something you can actually point to that disproves the negative belief that rational input seems to reactivate the prefrontal cortex, the PFC.
The more logical part of the brain.
Exactly. Think of the PFC as the fire chief who can assess the situation rationally. It gets the accurate data, sees there's no actual fire, and tells the amygdala, the alarm system, to calm down.
So the rational brain takes back control from the emotional alarm.
Right. And the sources emphasize this fascinating point. The body literally relaxes in the presence of truth. There's a measurable physiological shift towards calm.
That's amazing. Just providing the fact gives the nervous system permission to, stand down.
Precisely. It's a release from that constant internally generated threat state.
But, okay, neurologically speaking, how do we actually overwrite potentially years of negative programming? Because we hear about how negative self-talk makes those neural circuits thicker, right? Overgrown roots. Neurons that fire together, wire together.
That's the challenge. Those negative pathways can become really dominant, really entrenched. And trying to overwrite them with flimsy, hollow affirmations, just saying, I'm confident when you feel terrified.
It doesn't work.
It's like, as the sources put it, whispering against thunder. It's completely ineffective because, again, the nervous system detects the massive mismatch. It knows it's not true based on past data.
So you can't just paper over the old circuit. You have to somehow weaken it?
You have to actively prune the negative circuit. That's where neuroplasticity comes in.
Synaptic pruning. How does that actually work? Does it take years? Because that sounds like a huge undertaking.
That's a really common misconception, actually. You don't need some monumental success story to start the process. You just need one small, undeniable, factual counterexample to the negative belief.
Just one piece of evidence.
One piece. Maybe it's a time you did follow through on a tiny promise to yourself. Or you successfully stuck to a budget for, say, 2 days when your belief is, I'm terrible with money. Just find one concrete, verifiable instance.
Okay, so start small, but make it real.
Absolutely real. That small fact acts like the seed for new, healthier circuitry. Then, by consistently bringing that factual evidence to mind, you start to strengthen the new pathway. And gradually, through synaptic pruning, the old negative pathway weakens from disuse.
Sort of. Atrophies.
It atrophies over time. It's not instant, no, but it's steady. It's reliable because it's based on feeding the system real data, not wishful thinking.
Okay, let's bring this back out from the brain to the wider culture. We really need to talk about this modern pressure cooker of toxic positivity.
Ah, yes, that's a big one.
That relentless cultural command to just stay positive, good vibes only, even when you're feeling totally valid rational things like fear or grief or anger.
It's that painting over rust idea playing out on a massive scale, isn't it?
It really is. And the danger is when we're forced to suppress or deny those legitimate emotions, they don't just evaporate.
No, they go underground. They fester. Denying valid emotion creates this enormous internal pressure within the nervous system. Eventually, it tends to explode. Usually as things like chronic anxiety, panic attacks, or just complete burnout. Someone described it vividly as a pressure to smile while drowning.
Wow, that captures it perfectly. Smiling while drowning. So toxic positivity isn't just sort of annoying, it's actively harmful. It's aggressively painting over real emotional rust.
It prevents genuine processing and healing.
This seems like a good place to bring in Albert Ellis and his rational emotive behavior therapy, REBT.
Right, Ellis was really focused on this connection between beliefs and emotions.
But hang on. If someone is going through something truly awful, like massive grief or dealing with a serious injustice, isn't telling them it's just their irrational beliefs potentially, I don't know, emotionally cold, or even like blaming the victim.
That's a really important clarification, actually, and a common misunderstanding of REBT. Rational thinking in this context isn't about denying the reality or the pain of the event. It's about challenging the irrational, often catastrophic interpretation we attach to the event.
Okay, so it's not denying the event, but the story we tell ourselves about the event.
Precisely. Ellis taught that our deep emotional suffering often doesn't come directly from the event itself, say, losing a job. It comes from the irrational beliefs we layer on top of it. Beliefs like, this is proof I'm a complete failure, or I am doomed, I will never find another job, my life is over.
Those catastrophic all-or-nothing conclusions.
Exactly. Those are the irrational beliefs that create the intense suffering. Rational analysis isn't asking you to pretend losing your job doesn't hurt.
It's asking you to challenge the belief that this single event means you're doomed forever.
Yes. It's asking you to deny the permanent, damning conclusion, not the immediate pain. So rational thinking doesn't deny emotion at all. It aims to interpret it accurately.
Okay, interpret it.
How? It sees emotions as valuable data. Fear is data about perceived risk. Maybe the risk is real, maybe it's inflated by belief. Doubt is feedback perhaps on your preparation levels. Anger often signals an unmet need or a boundary that's been crossed.
So emotions become information, not just overwhelming feelings.
Exactly. And confidence in this rational view isn't something you just manufacture with a happy thought or an affirmation. It's something that is earned through careful analysis, preparation, and gathering evidence of your capabilities.
That feels much more solid, much more earned. This really circles back to the core of this whole rational revolution in thinking. Yeah. Maltz put it so perfectly, didn't he? That quote,
"You make mistakes. Mistakes don't make you."
Yes. That one sentence just cuts right through it.
It really does, because it fundamentally separates your identity from specific incidents. It draws a clean line.
So the emotional mind might see a failure and immediately leap to the conclusion, okay, that proves it, I'm a loser. Total identity fusion.
Right. But the rational mind, the mind Maltz is describing, sees that same failure not as a reflection of inherent worth, but as telemetry, as data.
Telemetry, like from a rocket launch.
Exactly. It thinks, okay, the trajectory was off on that attempt. The plan needs adjustment. Let's correct the coordinates and try again. You, the core system, are seen as dynamic, capable of learning, and constantly calibrating towards improvement.
Failure becomes feedback, pure and simple. not personal trauma.
That's the ideal, yes. Feedback for the servo-mechanism.
Okay, this is all incredibly insightful, but let's make it super practical. For someone listening right now who wants to start implementing this rational recalibration today, what's the actual formula? What are the actionable steps, based on Maltz's method, to start thinking with this kind of precision?
Okay, the formula itself is straightforward, but like anything worthwhile, it requires consistency, some diligence. Step 1. Write down one specific negative belief that you feel is holding you back. Something concrete like, I'm too lazy to exercise, or I'm just naturally bad with money.
Got it. Identify the target belief.
Step 2. Find one piece of hard, factual evidence that undeniably contradicts that belief. And it needs to be truly factual, something you can't argue away.
Not an opinion, not a feeling, a fact.
A verifiable fact. Maybe you did go for a 15-minute walk yesterday. Maybe you did manage to pay one bill on time last month. Maybe you saved $5 when you thought you couldn't save anything. Find that small, concrete piece of counter-evidence.
Okay, find the contradictory fact. Then what?
Step 3. Review that specific fact daily. Consciously bring it to mind. Remind your nervous system of this piece of data that doesn't fit the old negative narrative. Keep doing it until that fact starts to feel more real, more believable than the old ingrained belief.
So it's about consistent reinforcement of the factual counterpoint.
Exactly. The key is the undeniable factuality of the evidence, no matter how small it seems initially. That single fact is the seed. It's the starting point for building that new, more accurate, more resilient neural circuitry.
And the ultimate goal here isn't necessarily to just think positive thoughts all day, which feels vague and kind of depends on your mood anyway.
Right, positivity can be fleeting. The goal is to think precise, to align your internal map with the actual territory of your life based on evidence.
Precision, I like that.
Because that precision, built fact by fact, is what genuinely builds stable confidence. And because that confidence is, in a way, mathematically justified by the evidence you've gathered,
It has roots.
it gives your optimism, your hope, really strong, stable roots that aren't easily shaken by the next setback.
And that stability, that evidence-based foundation, that feels like the real liberation here. Because rational self-improvement, framed this way, it works regardless of how you feel on any given day.
Exactly. Facts don't care about your mood. They just are. Which means you can finally stop trying to maintain that exhausting fake smile when you're actually struggling or facing difficulty.
You can just deal with the reality of the situation using the data you have.
And the source material leaves us with this powerful image. When the inevitable storms of life hit, the positive thinker just hopes. The rational thinker adjusts.
Adjusts based on the real conditions. Adjusts based on truth. And that approach just has to be more resilient in the long run than simply hoping based on emotion, doesn't it?
It seems logically it must be.
Because ultimately, feelings like optimism can fade, especially under pressure. But facts remain. And the steady, honest, self-correcting mind, the rational mind that seems like the one that's truly built to last,